Everybody that goes through life is gonna eventually encounter that person. And by that person, I mean a guy that has been through hell and back. Somebody that has had their shit pushed in so many times, through no fault of their own, that it does make you wonder, are they hated by God himself? But in spite of that all, they always somehow manage to keep a cool mind and have a positive outlook on life, and are always there when you need solid advice. Lamenters are those guys in 40k. They are one of the rare few in 40k that can confidently claim the title of good guys, in spite of constantly getting backstabbed, betrayed, devastated by enemy forces, punished for doing nothing but good deeds, and basically being hated by life itself. They are always willing to give a helping hand to those in need. So without further ado, let's just jump into their lore. So Lamenters are a Blood Angel successor chapter. And as we all know, Blood Angels have a couple of quirks in their heads. Those quirks, of course, being Black Rage, the thing that makes them go mad, the result of daddy getting bitch slapped and never waking up, and the red thirst, the thing that makes them want to drink blood, which is a hereditary thing. Now, a couple of AdMac boys had a brilliant idea. So you know how Blood Angels are really good at fighting, but their downside is that at any moment they might succumb to their schizophrenias and start massacring their own allies. Well, what if we take out their gene seed, tinker with it a bit, figure out what's causing the issue, and fix it? To be fair to the AdMac, this was successful, and the Marines implanted with this new gene seed were immune to both the Black Rage and the Red Thirst. This would have been all well and good if it wasn't done in the 21st founding, also known as the Cursed founding. And as the name would suggest, our lamenting boys are in it for a rough one. Starting off immediately on one of their first combat deployments to a high world of Cornelia during Abaddon's 9th Hissy Fit. They were originally supposed to team up with another loyalist chapter called the Mortificators and defend populace and infrastructure on the planet. And this is the first, but certainly not last, real time when you can see their bad luck really start to kick in. Because this chapter, Mortificators, were superstitious bunch. So they took them teaming up with Lamenters, a cursed founding chapter, as a sign of bad luck and fucked off, leaving the Lamenters to defend the populace all by themselves. Which they did for 6 weeks with no resupply against several Chaos Black Legionnaire warbands, all the while suffering horrendous casualties. Now let me address something. Realistically, this should have been the end of the Lamenters. But Lamenters have more plot armor than even the Ultramarines. But it's the type of plot armor that you really don't want to have. This is the type of plot armor that allows you to survive cancer, only for you to still be in massive pain and have to force yourself to go into bankruptcy to afford the drugs that only prolong your shitty existence further without alleviating any pain. Speaking of pain, Black Legionnaires were about to get some, because guys with actual good plot armor were coming. So Ultramarines and White Scars came into the system, scattered the Chaos fleet and rescued the shattered remnants of the Lamenters. And shattered they were. Out of the original 1,000 Marines that arrived on the world, barely 200 survived, meaning that they lost 80% of their chapter, which is Stalingrad level casualty rate. But Lamenters could at least rest easy and relax for a bit, because at least they managed to save the populace of the planet. Just kidding, after they jumped into warp, they got stuck there for 1 century. But because time moves differently in the warp, it could have been longer for them. And knowing the Lamenters' luck, it probably was. Their next engagement after recovering their numbers a bit was at Slaughterhouse 3, a great name for an orc planet, where after finding out that orcs were using humans as slave labor in the mines while starving them to death, Lamenters asked for the support of other chapters in order to rescue the humans. No other chapters wanted to help because it just wouldn't make sense sacrificing Astartes' extraordinarily expensive shock infantry in order to save comparatively small numbers of humans from a heavily defended and fortified world. This would be like if in real world US decided to sacrifice 200 F-35s, each costing 100 mil, in order to save some guy called Jim. But Lamenters don't care about your facts. They care about their feelings. So they decided to ask the Ultramarines, the leaders of the expedition, for permission to rescue them. Probably just out of the formality. They would have most likely done so regardless of Calgar's answer. But Calgar said yes, and Mission Impossible was a go. Lamenters only had 300 battle brothers, and deployed them all on the planet. Humans, seeing Biggie's angels coming to save them, initiated a revolution against the bourgeoisie, which didn't accomplish much, but it was a nice distraction for the main Lamenter force. So after the Lamenters mopped up orcs from the mining area, they started evacuating the populace, but quickly realized that they didn't have enough time nor enough ships to evacuate all the populace in time until an even larger orc force arrived. But the populace still proclaimed them heroes and said that they at least allowed them to die free men, some real braveheart shit. Lamenters supposedly cried at this and planted a shit ton of explosives in the mines before leaving the planet with minority of the populace that they managed to save. Last thing that they saw was humans detonating underground charges and causing the extermination level event on the planet. Calgar wanted to give them a gift for their excellent performance, but Lamenters refused, because saving only 250,000 survivors out of the original 3 million was in their eyes not an outcome deserving of celebration, which caused Ultramarines to start hating on them even more. All in all, this expedition costed them 200 battle brothers out of the original 300 deployed, a 66% casualty rate, alongside with emergence of Black Rage, the thing that they were created to not have, the thing that they sacrificed their good luck to avoid having. Damn, Lamenters just can't catch a break. And catch breaks they wouldn't, because they next had to help out some rogue trader, which they did for a while before their ships got damaged and lost. Just, drifting around for a bit. But not for long, because Deathwatch found them and gang pressed them into their service. So after that, surviving Lamenters that didn't join Deathwatch received orders to team up with Astral Claws and Mantis Warriors to create an organization called Wardens of the Maelstrom in order to protect the Badab sector. This was the first time, and probably the last, that Lamenters felt true happiness. They had friends and the purpose of defending the citizenry. So you already know that this shit has to end. And it did, in a spectacular way called the Badab War. I don't have the time to cover the Badab War, but in short, it started because Huron, leader of the Wardens, decided he could spend taxes from planets under his command better than the bureaucrats on Terra could. So he just stopped paying his taxes, which caused a war between the Imperium and the Wardens. In the beginning, Wardens were locked the fuck in and decimated any chapter that attacked them, massively helped by the fact that the Astral Claws decided to ditch the rule that limited Space Marine chapters to 1,000 Marines, making them renegades at best, traitors at worst. At which point Imperium decided to stop playing games and brought in 2 chapters renowned for their expertise in killing Space Marines. Minotaurs, the lapdogs of the High Lords of Terra, equipped with the greatest training and equipment money can buy, and Space Sharks, a chapter that wanders the void outside of the galaxy and destroys eldritch horrors before they become Imperium's problem. So Minotaurs and Space Sharks decided to split up, each taking one of the Warden chapters in order to isolate Huron and Astral Claws from their allies. Minotaurs going for Lamenters, whom they easily jumped whilst Lamenters were resupplying, and and devastated their numbers. And to add insult to injury, they also stole their armor and equipment used to create new Space Marines, crippling the chapter in the process. Meanwhile, Mantis warriors somehow had it worse, because Space Sharks got fed up with their hit-and-run tactics and started killing civilians indiscriminately in order to force Mantis warriors into a pitch battle if they wanted to save the populace that they were sworn to protect. They did, and they got massacred by Tarbarus and the rest of the Space Sharks. Fortunately or unfortunately for Lamenters, they were still allowed to serve the Imperium, unlike the Astral Claws, but they had to go on a penitence crusade, basically meaning they had to fight every enemy that they encountered, whilst not being allowed to rest or replenish their numbers, all the whilst being shadowed by a task force of Red Hunter Space Marines, who were there to confirm that Lamenters were indeed complying with the terms of the deal. And Red Hunters were chosen because they were the teacher's pet of the Inquisition, even being allowed to bear Inquisition symbol on their chapter colors. But it would appear that the Lamenters' bad luck is contagious, because during the Second Tyrannic War, Lamenters were forced to take a last stand against the High Fleet Kraken, and due to shadowing the warp, it involuntarily forced Red Hunters to take one too, causing both the Lamenter chapter and the Red Hunter task force to suffer heavy casualties, reducing Lamenters to only 3 companies. But it would appear that their penitence has been ended, or has been cancelled by the Imperium, because they received Primaris Marines. So it would appear that these boys are set to survive and struggle in this cruel galaxy that hates them for at least a couple more centuries.